Welcome to the Monday edition of the 14. I am your host, Chris Lee. Barry Allen joins me. Barry, we've got a lot of baseball to talk about. I think this was the most interesting weekend of baseball in the Southeastern Conference so far. Oodles of storylines to come as the championship race hits its conclusion for the regular season this coming weekend. I say weekend, it starts on Thursday, but boy, lots to talk about. We've got Arkansas emerging now as the title favorite. I thought Mississippi State was going to have the shot because of that schedule. State just in stunning fashion lost the last two games to Missouri. Arkansas wins probably the best series of the year in the SEC, if not the country. In Knoxville, you've got Ole Miss winning 2 over Vanderbilt with Jack Leiter coming back. You've got the battle at the bottom with Auburn kind of taking the lead there with the series win over Texas A&M. Just all sorts of stuff to talk about this morning.
Yeah, you figure the last few weeks, it's going to, everything's going to ramp up. And, week 1 is exciting. Week 4 is exciting. But I think a little more, attention is placed on the races when you get into weeks 8, 9, and 10, because that's actually when it's all going to be decided. I mean, they can say, well, this is a great week, but week 2, there's still 8 weeks left. But now there's 1 week left. So this is it. It's all going to happen Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. And very likely it's probably all going to go down to Saturday, as it should, to determine all the, the places and pecking order in the SEC. And, even Missouri, as bad as they've been all year long, Missouri's a series win over Auburn from, making it to Hoover. And they got 7 wins in the league, but if they take a series from Auburn, they got a shot. They'll go to Hoover, and Auburn will get left out. So you take it, and it just kind of works out that the 4 of the bottom 5 teams, LSU, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Missouri, they all play each other this weekend. So you're going to have a lot of drama in those series. People go, well, there's the last place teams. Well, those last place teams are trying to get into Hoover and keep their season alive, and those are the only 4 teams that hadn't clinched a spot in Hoover yet. So there's 10 spots cinched and 4 to go, and we're going to have a lot of drama on the bottom of the standings. We're going to have a lot of drama at the top of the standings with Arkansas, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Maybe Florida still, certainly still in the run for the East. And I'm not sure that they're going to be able to catch Arkansas. Although if they sweep them, then they will. But I don't see that happening. But a lot of drama up at the top half of the league and a lot of drama in the bottom half, and everybody in the middle just trying to hold serve and, keep a good seed for the tournament as we head to the last week.
Well, let's start with what I think, again, was the series of the year, with Arkansas winning 2 of 3 in Knoxville. All 3 of those games go down to the wire. Tennessee wins the middle game on a gargantuan home run by Max Ferguson. And then you had the post-game fireworks in Game 3 with Tony Vitello and Dave Van Horn getting into it with Tennessee shutting off Arkansas's hot water after the series. So there was that also. That was just a wild one. And again, weekend MVP, if you're voting, maybe Kevin Kopps.
Well, he proved yesterday he was human. He gave up a run. I've seen him pitch a lot. That's the first time I've ever seen him give up a run. Obviously, I haven't seen every game he's pitched, but that's the first time I'd seen him give up a run. And but he's nails for him. Comes in Friday night and wins. He wins both of the games. So now he's got 9 wins and 7 saves going into the last week of the regular season. And we talked about it last weekend. Chris Burke from ESPN SEC Network has echoed our sentiments. I think he's the pitcher of the year in the league. I don't care if he's a reliever, care if he pitches, 3 innings a game. Like Berkey said on the telecast the other day, he was talking, he goes, Kumar Rocker's a great pitcher. Jack Leiter's a great pitcher. Doug Nikhazy's a great pitcher. But you only got to fool with that guy one time. You got to deal with Kevin Kopps twice. You got to beat him Friday and Sunday, and nobody's done it. And so Tennessee didn't either, and they're really good, and they didn't beat him either. And he came in and shut it down Friday night. And when you look at the games inside the games, probably the most epic confrontation of the season, was Friday night when he struck out Luke Lipsius to end, I believe it was the 6th inning, on a 15 pitch at bat and wins that war. And then you come back Sunday. Well, guess who leads off the 9th inning? Luke Lipsius. Well, guess what he did? Double down the right field line. So Lipsius learned from that at bat Friday night. And they felt like Friday night that was the at bat that shut the game down and it gave Arkansas the win. So that was an epic confrontation Friday night, and it was just thrilling to watch. I mean, it was every pitch was high drama. You know, neither guy flinched, neither guy gave in, and you know, Cobb struck him out. And then Lipsius beat him yesterday with a double, and ended up scoring the run in the 9th inning to make it 3-2. But you know, Tennessee led 5-0 Friday night, lost, scored 5 in the first. They scored 2 runs in the first inning Saturday, lost the lead, but won the game. So 7, they had 10, 13 runs, 7 of their 13 runs in the series they scored in the first inning. And Arkansas scored 6, and 7 is 13, and 3 yesterday is 16, and 8 of their 16 runs they scored in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. So the drama was there. It was a high drama series. I told Bob Kessling and Rusty Enzer yesterday, I texted both of them. They did the game on SEC Plus for Tennessee, and I told both of them yesterday, I've been doing this 35 years. There are not many series that I can remember that was that dramatic, that high level, that high intensity for all 3 games. I remember Alabama and LSU in 97 playing for the SEC championship in Tuscaloosa where, you know, game 1 was intense. Friday night, Alabama had to sweep. One game won. Had game 2 on Saturday, in which was a dog game, really. 28-2, Alabama won. So they go into Sunday with a win to win the SEC, and LSU hits 2 home runs and wins the one game and ends up winning the SEC. You know, a lot of high drama in that series, but one game was a real stinker. Good for Alabama, but it was a stinker. And there's just other series you try to think of over the years, but very few I could think of that rivals what we watched this weekend in Knoxville. And it was both teams played extremely well. Both teams made plays when they needed to make them. Both teams got out of situations when they needed to get out of them. I thought Zebulon Vermillion yesterday came in, bases loaded, gave up a little dinky grounder to short. 1 run scored, got out of the inning with a 1 run, and Tennessee only led 1-0. I mean, that's a 4-run inning. Tennessee wins the series. That's a 3-run inning. They probably win the series. They probably don't go to cops. So a lot of drama, a lot of different guys. You know, Monk pitched really well Friday night. You wrote about him Friday night. I mean, you could just go on and on. Max Ferguson, Liam Spence for Tennessee. You know, their bullpen kind of let Tennessee down a little bit this weekend, but you could go down the rosters of both teams, and you know, Jordan Beck was big, Russell was big, you know, Christian Franklin was huge. I mean, you could just pick a guy and say something about him, and everybody had a key contribution to the series this weekend for both sides.
Yeah, I want to get back into a few individual things from that series, but do we know what that post-game dust-up was about?
You know, I don't. I think some of it had to do with, you know, Max Ferguson's antics Saturday as he rounded the bases on a walk-off home run. And, I mean, who's not going to be excited to hit a walk-off home run, your second home run of the game, to beat the number 1 team in the league and put you in a tie for first place in the biggest game and the biggest series of the year? But I think they kind of felt like he hot dogged it a little bit going around the bases. And I think they felt like he was yelling into their dugout. I don't have a problem with celebrating. I don't think you need to be yelling into somebody's dugout because you got another game to play. And obviously it didn't work because Arkansas shut them up yesterday. That may have had something to do with it. I don't think Arkansas really appreciated that. But I don't really know what happened there yesterday. I don't think anybody does. I think we both reached out to people that were there, and it was kind of like neither coach really wanted to talk about it. It did show that after the teams met in the outfields, that both coaches met in close proximity to the Arkansas dugout and several minute discussion. And it did not look like they were checking on Mrs. Vitello and Mrs. Van Horn and how the kids are doing. And when it ended, they walked away and there was no handshake when that was done. according to some of the reports and the video that was posted on Twitter and stuff. So I don't know exactly what it was all about. I think it's just a high drama series. I'm all for it again. I'd love to see them play again, maybe in Hoover, maybe in Omaha. And but I don't know what happened there. But to me, that didn't mar the series. I mean, that's just maybe two coaches sticking up for their teams, and maybe the young guy, kind of felt like he had the old guy on the ropes, his mentor, his former boss on the ropes, and he didn't get it done. And he was frustrated, and maybe the veteran coach was relieved that the young guy didn't best him in the series that weekend. But that, to me, that didn't take away from the series at all.
Yeah, a couple of things here. Kevin Kopps throws 66 pitches and gets a win in game one. He throws, 59 and gets a win in game two? Yes, it was 59, so he's 9-0 on the season. In game two, I say game two, it was game three. It was the second game that he pitched. 3 2/3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. It was earned, 4 strikeouts. So, again, just amazing. I don't know how a guy continues to throw at the high volume twice a weekend that he does, but he's doing it. And Lyle Lockhart, that was a big takeaway. I talked about Caden Monk. When was it? Saturday? I thought he gave them some big innings. A big lefty with just gets a lot of extension on it. And I would think it'd be tough to see the ball out of his hand. But Lyle Lockhart, who's been good at times, goes 4 1/3, gives up 1 run, strikes out 7, gets through 18 batters. So it gets Arkansas off to a really good start on Sunday, which was going to be a concern because Tennessee's got 3 starters who've shown they're all capable of going lengthy stints. Blake Tidwell, who's been good for Tennessee, did that. He goes 7 innings, gives up 2, walks 4, strikes out 8. They get to closer Sean Hunley for a run, which ended up being very important. But I thought for Arkansas, you don't like the fact that Patrick Wicklander wasn't very good, but that's been one of the few times all year. I think you can go to the postseason believing in him, especially with that offense. Of course, Kopps speaks for itself, but now you've got guys in Monk and Lockhart who gave them some good things at times, and I thought that was big for Arkansas.
Yeah, they had guys step up that have pitched before and pitched well. And you mentioned Monk. His deal on Friday night. This game is very close Friday night to getting out of hand. It's 5-0 in the first inning, and you think, whoa, here we go. And then Arkansas comes right back on offense with 2 in the second and 2 in the third, and then ties the game in the fifth. Their offense keeps them in it. But Monk came in, he faced 12 hitters and retired 10 of the 12 that he faced, and then they turned the game over to Kopps in the 7th inning when they don't have the lead. It's tied, but they turn the game over to him in the 7th inning, and he goes 3 innings and gets out of just shuts them down. So their bullpen Friday night behind Wicklander went 6 1/3 and struck out 5, allowed 1 hit and no runs, and that. Even though both threw quite a few pitches, it just that was huge for them, in that instance, and saved them for the series and ended up getting the win. Now Saturday it wasn't quite the same, although Pallette went 3 1/3, Bolden came in and went 3 1/3, so they get them into the 7th inning, and Castillo has pitched really well, and he struck out 4 of the 5 he's faced, and they don't bring him back. I guess
they went to Jax Wiggins in that spot. We were like, what? We didn't get that one at all.
Yeah, Castillo gave up the leadoff pop up to Pavoloni, who's almost out at first because he pops it up and he thought it's in the stands, and it's actually out in shallow right center field, and the second baseman fields it, and if Slavens is on the bag, he's probably out, and that whole inning changes. But he made it to first, and then they went to Wiggins, and he walks Spence, and then he faces Ferguson, and I like Ferguson. I thought he had a lot of brashness to him. I didn't think he was cocky at all. He said they came up to him, and he said, Coach V goes, "What do you want to do?" And, the book says you bunt. I mean, the book says you got to bunt, get the guys to second and third, and try to win the game that way. And so he said then the third base coach and the first base coach are standing there and they're talking to him. And they go, well, this is the time we bunt and all this stuff. And he goes, and then Coach A is talking about Frank Anderson. And I'll clean most of it up. But he said Anderson comes over and he goes, to hell with that. We need a 3-run Jimmy. He said, hit a bomb. And he did. He said, forget all that. He said, let's cut him loose. Let him go. He said, he's going to throw you a fastball. Cut him loose. And he hits a 3-run homer. So I like that. I thought that was one of the highlights of the weekend. But yeah, bringing in Wiggins in that situation where Castillo had really kind of handcuffed him, that had me scratching my head a little bit on that one. And then they were able to, overcome yesterday. And another. I thought they pitched well yesterday as a starter. And I thought their offense was really struggling against Tidwell, who threw great for Tennessee. I mean, he deserved better fate. You mentioned he went 7 innings. At one point in the game, he retired 14 in a row, and then he got into a little trouble in the 7th, and he gave up a run, and then they ended up leaving him in the 8th, and he gave up what would be the second run that tied the game, and then Hundley gave up the run in the 9th, or was charged with the run in the 9th. Which he didn't. I don't think he pitched well Friday night either. I think he gave up the run Friday night that he did. He lost the game. He gave up the unearned run Friday night in the 8th, and it ended up costing the Tennessee the game. But some interesting choices on the mound, and some interesting ways to get in and out of that for the weekend. For both Arkansas and Tennessee. But I think Arkansas. We mentioned Vermillion. He had a big time yesterday. They brought Monk back, and he walks the first batter he faced on 4 pitches, and he got ball 1 to the next hitter, and it was a quick hook. It was a quick hook yesterday for him, and they went to Vermillion, and he got him through a scoreless inning and had bases loaded, and I think it was bases loaded and no outs, and he got out of it with the 1 run, and then they were able to turn the game over to Cops and then end up getting the series, and so I thought Arkansas had some good moments on the mound this weekend, and Wicklander notwithstanding, and Pallette, I think they'll bounce back, and that'll help them down the stretch.
Okay, if I had to pick any series all season in terms of just pick a winner, this team wins at least 2 out of 3. My goodness, Mississippi State to beat Missouri would have been very, very close to, if not at the absolute top of my list. Let me just give you some stats on Missouri here, okay? I'm looking at run differential and overall games. Kentucky is 13th at plus 16. Even Auburn and A&M, which have had bad seasons, Auburn's plus 46. A&M is plus 57 in runs in all games. Missouri is minus 105. In league play, Missouri is minus 70 in run differential, which is the worst. And that is after taking 2 of 3 in Starkville, including a 16-8 win in Game 3. Barry, where in the world did this come from?
Well, before I answer that, let's take away a 7th inning Thursday night, and the Tigers are sweeping the Bulldogs.
I know that's what makes it even crazier.
That Mississippi State's very fortunate they didn't go 0-3, because Missouri, turned in a crazy performance in the 7th inning Thursday night, or we're sitting here really going, what in the world went on in Starkville this weekend? I think Mississippi State's very fortunate they were only 1-2, because I think they should have lost all 3 games. But I think you get into situations like that where kids are human, and they look and they go, look, they're not any good. They've lost 10 in a row. We're going to win the SEC. We got a packed house this weekend. We're going to kill these guys. We're going to go to Alabama next week and win. We're going to be the SEC champions. And you play a game Thursday night, and you get out of it, and you're like, okay, well, we dodged one. Now we'll smoke them the next 2 days. And then you don't beat them on Friday night. And then you come back on Saturday, you go, well, we can still get the series. And I mean, they're down like I think they were down like 8-0.
Yes, it was
At
8-0 in the third. Yeah.
And then it gets back to where it's like 10-8. And then you think, well, okay, here comes Mississippi State. They're gonna overtake them now. And then it goes to 12-8, then 16-8. I mean, Missouri hit 4 home runs in the game. They had a grand slam and a 3-run homer. I mean, they pounded the ball, and they didn't seem too impressed with Mississippi State's pitching staff on Saturday. And I know once it gets out of hand, you don't run your top guys out there. But credit Missouri. I mean, nobody's talked about them since week 2 when they hadn't won any series and just didn't think anything was going to happen from them. But they go to Starkville, win 2 out of 3, and if they win 2 out of 3 against Auburn this weekend, they're going to Hoover. And talk about a team that won 1 series all year long and win their last 2 over Mississippi State and Auburn. And don't think they can't beat Auburn, because they can. And they'll finish 9-21 if Auburn would be 9-21, and A&M, just say if they win one, they're all 9-21. Well, Missouri beat A&M and Auburn, so Missouri's in, and A&M and Auburn's out. So it's now A&M wins 2 out of 3 at LSU, 2 of 3 at LSU against LSU. Yeah, that's gonna make it hard for Auburn and Missouri's whoever wins that series to get in anyway, because they'll still be a game ahead, and A&M will get in. But if LSU wins 2 out of 3 from Texas A&M, which I think they will, and if Missouri beats Auburn 2 out of 3 in Columbia, Missouri's the 12, and they're in Hoover, and A&M and Auburn stay home, and so you got to give Missouri a lot of credit for hanging in there. I think they lost 9 in a row after Thursday night in the league, and nobody gave them a chance to win the series in Starkville. And they not only won the series, but they were one bad 7th inning away Thursday night from a sweep.
Well, and the weird thing about Saturday, which was game 3, Andrew Kiefer, their right fielder who makes that big catch, I guess it was Thursday night, hurts himself. I didn't see what it was, but had a bad enough leg injury that they brought him off on a splint. So they lose in the middle of, apparently at the time, looked like blowing a big lead. They lose one of their better offensive players too, and somehow it just works out. I'm looking at State's pitching line. I mean, State was the team that I think I've heard Aaron Fitz say this at D1, probably has more arms than anybody in the country. That was the expectation going in. The first 7 guys that State throws in game 3 were all bad. Eric Sarantola, of all people, throws 2/3 of an inning, it doesn't give up a runner, was the most effective and maybe the only effective guy that they threw. This is just one of those things, like if you are playing a video game or a sim game or something, and this spits it out as the outcome of that series and all the weird things that happen, you take that thing and you throw it in the trash. You say, this would not happen in real baseball, and yet here we are.
Well, Missouri scored multiple runs in 5 of the 9 innings Saturday in clinching the series. And, they started Houston Harding, who I don't think had started an SEC game this year. He had started some midweek games. He gave up 6 runs in 2 innings. And then Cade Smith came in, Preston Johnson, Chase Patrick. He went an inning and 2/3 scoreless, but he walked 3 and had a wild pitch. Cam Tuller came in, gave up 2 runs and 4 hits in an inning. Stone Simmons, 2 unearned runs in an inning and a third. Mikey Tepper gave up 2 runs and got 1 out. And then Sarantola came in and got the last 2 guys after, I think, the 3-run homer that made it 16-8. But Missouri just kind of kept going all weekend long. I mean, they had some good days. Luke Mann, had the grand slam. Alex Peterson had a big day with 2 homers. He hadn't homered all year and hit 2 homers on Saturday. And then Brant Belk, hit the 3-run homer. Mann hit the 3-run homer. Belk hit the grand slam in the game, and just put pressure on them up and down the lineup. And Mississippi State scored. I mean, they had their offense. They had 16 hits, but 4 errors didn't help them. And then the walks, it's kind of uncharacteristic. They walked 8 and only struck out 9. And Missouri just kept pouring it on and never stopped on offense. And State did not have an answer for them, in that series finale to win the series.
Vandy Ole Miss, I think one of those rare series that maybe each team is happy with the outcome. Ole Miss ends up getting a big series win, probably really, I'm not going to say cements because I don't know that it's guaranteed yet, but comes really close to clinching, I think, a regional host. Ole Miss 16-11. It goes to Georgia next week, and Georgia really struggling without a lot of its top arms. So Ole Miss ends the series in good position. And if you're Vanderbilt, I think the one thing you wanted to see was Kumar Rocker throw a good outing, and Jack Leiter, my goodness, he was outstanding coming back. Looked like Jack Leiter of old. I think that was the thing if you're Vanderbilt. I'm not going to say that the outcome didn't matter, but you wanted to make sure you got him back, which he did. And then it's the question of, how does he look? Can he be effective? Does he look fatigued? Does he look hurt? Whatever your questions might have been, he comes out and just blows through Ole Miss. Sometimes it was the fastball that was effective. Sometimes it was the breaking ball. But I think for Vanderbilt, which it had 7 different guys hit home runs in that series, I think that Vandy, I know that they really blew that one, I felt like, on Sunday. Tim Corbin made just a bad decision. They are getting blitzed in the third. He brings in freshman lefty Hunter Owen in a spot where they had Nick Maldonado up right after him. They still hadn't used Luke Murphy in that series. I have no earthly idea why he went to Owen in that spot, who's a kid who just wasn't ready for the stage. Ole Miss puts up a 10 spot between Owen and the batters that Patrick Riley had left him. But that was one of those weird series that I just think that both teams got out of it what I think they wanted.
Yeah, I think from Vanderbilt's perspective, they even though Kumar Rocker did not get the win, I think they had to be really pleased with the way he pitched, because he hasn't had, his best outings and best stuff of late. And I think he was really dialed in against Doug Nikhazy, and Doug Nikhazy just outpitched him. I've heard a lot of veteran people say, sometimes our best guy is just better than your best guy, and there's just not a whole lot you can do about it. And, our number one beat their number one, or their number one beat our number one, and that's just how it is. And 13 strikeouts and 6 innings, and only 2 hits and 2 walks out of Leiter. And it sounded like with talking to you and reading things that's kind of the Jack Leiter that they're used to seeing. And it sounded like that it might have been as good as he's pitched since the day he threw his no-hitter. And he just looked really good, and he looked fresh, and he looked sharp. And, maybe that's not a bad idea. Some point during the season, guy needs a week off. I mean, these are kids, and they are human, and you do get tired. And sometimes you just say, you know what, we're just going to hold you out this weekend. Let you take a week off, just chill, and get your work in, and then we'll be back in the rotation next week. And they were talking about this on the Alabama LSU telecast Saturday on the SEC network. About how coaches do pitching and different things like that. And I keep thinking back to 1999 when Alabama won the SEC tournament. They had 21 SEC wins. Arkansas had 22. Same division. Alabama finished second and was the 3rd seed in the tournament because the Eastern Division winner was the 2nd seed, and it was 15-15 South Carolina. And Jim Wells, who was the head coach at Alabama at the time, going into the tournament, I remember asking him, I said, what's your pitching plan for the tournament? And he goes, well, I'm not going to use any of my starters. And I said, well, you're in the tournament. You're probably going to be at that point, that was the first year of the super regionals. I said, you'll probably be a top, seed or whatever, and we'll probably get to host both rounds. And I remember he pitched Jason Moats against Ole Miss and Kevin Marzion against Mississippi State. And then we did use actually our number 3 guy on Saturday against Mississippi State, BJ Green. And then Sunday he pitched Jeremy Vaughn, who had pitched a couple of SEC games, but didn't use, Manny Torres, who was his number 1 guy, didn't use either of the first 2 guys all week. He went 4-0, won the tournament. So they had a week off, and actually he took Torres out of the Florida series the week before after 2 innings. So he basically had 2 weeks off. and he was fresh for the regionals, and they were able to win the regional and the super regional and go to Omaha, beating LSU in the super regionals at home to go to. So he gave some guys some time off, and sometimes that's maybe not a bad thing. Nikhazy's had some time off with some injury, but he looked good Friday, and maybe sometimes that's a good thing. Just hey, take a week off and just see what happens, and just rest your arm. Don't overthink things, and just it's more of a physical break, but it's a mental break too, and maybe that was a good thing for Leiter a couple of weeks ago, and if he pitches like that the rest of the way, that week off may be worth a trip to Omaha for them in the future.
Yeah, I think if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm going to Hoover and I'm throwing Rocker and Leiter on their normal days, which I guess would be Friday and Saturday, just to get them in rhythm. And if you're out of the tournament by then, you just are.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams kind of do that, or some. I think you go in there and you say, okay, well, we're going to pitch this guy on Wednesday and this guy on Thursday, and if that doesn't work and they don't get to pitch, so be it. But if you're there Friday and Saturday and you can use them, then you go for it, because I don't think Hoover's going to have any bearing on Vanderbilt's seeding or hosting or any of that stuff. I don't think that's going to have much effect on them whatsoever. There are other teams that cannot do that, but Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Tennessee, those are teams that that don't have to do that. I remember, I think it was 2001. Tennessee went to Hoover, and Wyatt Allen was a first-round draft pick. I think they went 2-out in Hoover. He didn't pitch at all. Rod Delmonico didn't think they needed him. They didn't think they needed any wins there, and they went 2-out. They were gone on like Thursday, so they had like the whole weekend off, and I think that helped them. Then they came to a regional the next week and home in Knoxville, and it was Wyatt Allen against DeJuan Brazelton from Middle Tennessee State, 2 first-rounders, and Chris Burke led off the game with a triple in the left field corner and scored a run on a ground out, and I think Tennessee won the game like 1 or 2-0. And they were rested. He had his best guy was rested. He gave him a complete game in the turn. So I think a lot of coaches look at that. We'll use them on our normal day, and if we don't play on those days, then so be it.
We talked about important things happening, and we talked about Vanderbilt and Jack Leiter, but man, I don't know that a club had a much more important series than South Carolina did this week. And I've said all along that, I think that their pitching is really underrated. And I don't know why Mark Kingston didn't do this earlier. I mean, I guess I know why, because you've got a guy that's, I hate to say Kevin Kopp's light, because I don't know it's that close in terms of how many innings he's used and the effectiveness. But Brett Carey's a really, really good super reliever. And he's the guy that they have saved for high leverage spots. Well, the problem with the Gamecocks is just that the bats haven't been there. And I think they get behind late in games, and maybe they can't throw Carey on those spots. And so he kind of took the bull by the horns, put Carey in the rotation. He pitches a shutout in his first start of the year, a complete game shutout. I just thought that Carolina really not only needed wins, but the way it pitched that series and getting that out of Carey, you look up at them, they got Brandon Jordan. They've got Thomas Ford. That's a really, really good rotation. I think, to me, the outlook for Carolina changed. And I know it's Kentucky. It's not one of the better teams in the league, but the Cats have won some games. They've won 11, and it's the SEC. And as Mississippi State learned the hard way this weekend, you can lose to anybody at any time. I felt like for Carolina to go and sweep that series against Kentucky on the road nonetheless, and get the pitching it got out of Carey, the bats finally woke up, which had been an issue for them in league play. I just thought that you can argue that maybe South Carolina came out of the weekend having boosted its stock as much as anybody.
They're one of the hardest teams to put your fingers on. This team is so up and down. They start the year with 11 straight wins and they lose 7 in a row. Can't win a Friday night game in the SEC to save their lives. Win 4 SEC games in a row by sweeping Florida. Now they've won 4 SEC games in a row by sweeping Kentucky, which ties their longest SEC streak of the year. And, they can't score. Seems like, they get shut down, with good pitching. They've had decent pitching. You can throw Will Sanders in there, who's pitched really well. I mean, I think they got 4 legitimate starters, if you add Carey into the mix. But here's a team that went into this weekend in their last 3 SEC series. Here's a team that in their last 3 SEC series scored 26 runs in 9 games. And I know it's Kentucky, and I know they don't have the most juggernaut pitching staff in the world and whatever, but they scored more runs against Kentucky, 32 this weekend, than they did in their previous 9 SEC games. And Eister had a monster weekend for them. He had 8 hits and 9 RBI. He had 5 RBI on Saturday and 4 yesterday. Allen had a big weekend. Wes Clark had a couple of really nice games. Wimmer homered in 2 of the 3 games in the series. I think their offense broke through yesterday, and that's what we talked about in our takeaways from yesterday's game. If that offense plays every week and Brent Carey's in that rotation every week, that's a team nobody wants to fool with. And with Tennessee coming to town this week, kind of licking their wounds from losing a series at home to Arkansas. I mean, South Carolina is one of the 20, and what better way to be one of the 16 than to win the last 2 series, and one of them being against Tennessee at home this weekend. That offense from this weekend at Kentucky and that pitching this weekend at Kentucky, they could beat Tennessee this weekend and really mess up the Vols SEC East and SEC championship, plans. And that's a really dangerous team. They're 15-12. I mean, even if they get swept, they're 15-15, but I don't think that's going to happen based on how they played this weekend. But that's a team that I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to see. And if they're not a host and they go somewhere as a number 2, that's somebody that's hosting and going, oh no, can we reseed these? Can we try this again? Because that's just really not going to work for us. And it's a team that when it's figured it out, it can be really good. And then it's a team that when they don't figure it out, it can struggle as it has in some previous weeks. And to say too, you say, well, they scored 26 runs. Well, they did that against Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. So, they did not have the greatest Western Division schedule in the world, just like Arkansas didn't have the greatest Eastern Division schedule in the world. But the biggest difference is Arkansas's won all their games and South Carolina didn't. When they had those very difficult games from the other side, they probably had the 2 most difficult crossover schedules of anybody. And Arkansas made the most of theirs, and South Carolina didn't. But this is still a dangerous team, and when they're clicking on all cylinders, they're a handful for somebody.
Yeah, I could see Carolina being a sleeper team to win it in Hoover. I could also see Carolina being a sleeper team, or not sleeper in my mind, to go to Omaha, because you look at it, they got Carey, Jordan, Sanders, and Farr. They've got 4 good starters there who can, I think, probably pitch them deep into games. Sanders might be the question there in terms of how long he can go, but he's a really good arm. You look in the bullpen, they've recast Bosnick as a reliever. He struck out 36 and walked 9 in 21 2/3 league innings, only giving up 2 home runs. They've got Andrew Peters, who's a really good arm. They got Jack Mahoney, who's their midweek guy that all of a sudden he's available in a regional. Yeah, I'm with you. I really like the construction of that team. And if they get Wesley Clark hitting again, which has been an issue just all year in league play, I think with that staff, all they need is a little bit of offense. Barry, you watched LSU and Alabama this week, and I got to see a couple innings. What I saw, balls were just flying out of the park at the box. But give me your takeaways out of that Alabama LSU series.
Well, I think it was a series that whoever won the series would probably get the upper hand and maybe getting into the NCAA tournament. Alabama lost 2 out of 3 Friday night. I think they're still scratching their heads how they lose a game with 13 hits and only scored 1 run. I mean, you have to be really, really good to get 13 hits and only score 1 run. Good meaning really bad luck. Everything just has to go against you. You can't. I mean, you have to really be skilled not to be able to get runs in. I mean, they had 3 consecutive hits in 1 inning and didn't score a run. And in back-to-back innings, they had 3 hits and 3 hits, and they did not score a run in any of those innings. And
that's almost impossible. I mean,
you can't. No, you can't. You couldn't do that in wiffle ball in the backyard. I mean, it's just impossible. And they had a play where they had runners at first and third. I think they've had 2 guys thrown out at home in this game, a guy thrown out at second. They had a guy thrown out at third. They tried to tag up on a pop fly to right field to end the inning, and it ended up being an F9-2 double play. They threw the guy out so far. And you look at the game, they had 13 hits. Davis Heller, who hadn't started an SEC game all year, starts at first base for the injured Drew Williamson. He goes 4 for 4. And entering the game, he was 2 for 20 all season. And then Jarvis, the shortstop, was 3 for 3. So you're 2 guys in the bottom of your order, and then Cade Rose had a couple of hits. But 2 guys in the bottom of your order were 7 for 7. And Rose, I think, had 2 hits. And they had 9 of their hits in the bottom of the order. The struggle for them Friday night was at the top of the order. Peyton Wilson, who went 1 for 13 in the series, was 0 for 5 and stranded 8 and made the last out in an inning 4 times from your leadoff spot. And the guy's been really good. He just didn't have a good game Friday night. But to see Marceau and Fontenot work out a jam after jam after jam after jam, and they win the game 2-1. And then Saturday, Alabama, gets a few hits, scores some runs, ends up winning the game 6-3. I think they had a couple of home runs. And then yesterday, I thought it was a critical game for both guys. And I thought, just to me, no knock on either side, but just to me, it looked like LSU was playing for a spot in the regional and Alabama was just kind of playing the game. And LSU came out. I think they were super charged up to go. They faced Connor Prelip, who started yesterday for the 3rd time this year. He got his 1 inning in, 22 pitches, and I thought he looked good. Ronnie Rance on the telecast said he's 94, his slider's 89. He missed 1 spot. Cade Doty hit it in the bleachers in left field, and it's 2-0, and he threw 22 pitches, and they took him out. And I'm like, well, why not try to extend him a little bit? Why not? Let's see if he can get 2 innings or 3 innings. And then I thought they kind of, like Vanderbilt, they kind of mismanaged the bullpen in the second inning. They turned to Hunter Ruth, who hasn't been used much in the SEC, and when they take him out, it's 8-3, and it's pretty much over. And then LSU hits. I think they hit 4 or 5 home runs yesterday. Alabama hit a couple, and so LSU, who though has not clinched a spot for Hoover yet, is 10th at 11-6, and they go to Aggie Land this weekend with a chance to get 2 or 3, get to 13 or 14, clinch to get into Hoover. If they win it in Aggie Land this weekend, they'll be 4 of their last 5 series they've won, and they'll be beating the teams that they needed to beat. They'll have beaten Kentucky, they'll have beaten Auburn, they'll have beaten A&M, they'll have beaten Alabama. Those teams that are below them, and there's probably some games that they wish they could have back. Some other, and of course everybody can say that. But I thought LSU felt a little sense of urgency trying to win that series with Alabama this weekend, and they did it. And I think that probably helps them. I think by winning the series, if the committee puts Alabama on the screen and LSU on the screen and they lock them together and they look and they're fairly similar and they're going to look and go, well, LSU beat them 2 out of 3. I thought that Sunday game yesterday could be the difference of making the tournament or not making the tournament if they're among the last 4 in, and if they have to pick between one or the other. I think LSU would have the advantage there.
Yeah, LSU also has got the RPI advantage. It is now 18. Alabama ends the weekend at 25. Look, Alabama, I think both teams have destiny within their control. If Alabama were to take 2 of 3 against Mississippi State this weekend, then all of a sudden you're looking up at a team that is what 14 and 15. Alabama, I think, is going to get in at that point. I bet the RPI would be around 20. LSU already at 18. If it gets a couple of road wins at A&M, A&M's RPI is 69, but that's going to be road wins, which get weighted. I think you could see both teams. Now, I think Alabama's task is tougher with Mississippi State. But, Connor Prelip now back in the mix, it appears. And so that wouldn't suddenly maybe more interesting than you would have pegged it a week ago.
Yeah, but I think he's got to give you more than an inning. I'm still really perplexed by him for this season. And I don't have any insight. I don't have any idea what's going on with him. But he pitches the first week, and he doesn't pitch for like almost 2 months. They run him out there in the finale against Auburn. He gives them an inning. Then we don't see him for 3 weeks, and they run him out there yesterday. He gives them an inning. I don't think that's enough. I think he's got to. I think they've got to stretch him out a little bit, maybe try to see what can happen. I mean, he could be dangerous for them in the postseason, and maybe that's what they're doing. They're going to just give him an inning, and then when they line up next Tuesday in Hoover for the SEC tournament, and they bounce him out there in Game 1, and he just handcuff somebody for 4 or 5 innings. Maybe that's what they're doing. That could be a lot of problems for some offense there. But the key for Alabama is to try to get from 12 to 13 or 14. Over the course of time, since this tournament's expanded to 1999, that if you have 12 SEC wins, only 15% of the teams have gotten into the tournament. 13 wins, 36% of the teams gets in, and 14% it jumps to 61. So it almost doubles from 13 wins to 14 wins. So that's why yesterday to me for Alabama was critical, and that's why this weekend for Alabama is critical. I don't know that they can get in I don't think they will get in at 12 and 17. I don't know that they can get in at 13 and 16. But if they were to get 2 this weekend for Mississippi State and be 14 and 15, I would like their chances a lot. And if LSU can get to 13 and 17, and certainly 14 and 16, I think their chances would improve tremendously as well. And then I think you're looking at maybe, 8 teams, 9 teams getting in the tournament. Georgia's 12 and 15. One against Ole Miss might be all they can get. Then they're 13 and 17. Then they're in that, lower part. And Kentucky, I don't know that they will win one at Vanderbilt this weekend. They might get the Sunday or the Saturday game, the game 3, but they would be 12 and 18 if they just get the one. And I don't think Kentucky with 12. I'm not sure Kentucky with 13 would get in either based on their schedule. And they only have series wins in the SEC this year against Missouri, Auburn, and Alabama. Not exactly murderer's row when it comes to going, hey, well, where were your series wins? Oh, well, we beat Missouri, Auburn, and Alabama. And they say that very quietly because they don't want you to know that they didn't, have a series win against anyone else.
Yeah, I think Kentucky would have to get a series win at Vanderbilt just to get in the conversation. If it sweeps 14 and 16, I think it's in, but the chances of sweeping Vandy and Nashville, I think, are going to be pretty remote, to say the least. Again, we just saw what Missouri did in Starkville, so you never know. The other team that is kind of, I don't know if I'd use the word life support, because Georgia was more competitive at Florida than I thought it would be. It loses a 1-run game and wins the final game, loses the middle game in a bit of a blowout. But Georgia, just all the arms it's lost. I don't know if they've got enough going into a ballpark this weekend where the ball really gets out of there. Ole Miss's lineup, right there with Arkansas is maybe the most potent in the league. So I think that's a tough task for Georgia. That's one to watch. Of course, Ole Miss has been very uneven, as we've documented. But that's the other team out there. I thought that Georgia was better at Florida than I expected. The Gators are just now kind of taking care of business, 17 and 10. I think Florida's going to host, although if it gets swept at Arkansas, maybe not, who knows. But Georgia, the team that really could use a win or two this weekend too.
Yeah, they've lost 7 of their last 10, and you look at Georgia's season, They got a series win at Vanderbilt, and then they have a home series loss to Auburn. So I think the Auburn loss trumps the Vandy series win, in my opinion. And then they also have a series loss at A&M. I think that might be the only series A&M has won this year.
I think you're right.
I think that's their only win. They lost at
You
Missouri.
A&M took a series against Georgia and took Ole Miss in Bluebell Park last weekend. Yeah,
that's right. Will Frizzell, the Player of the Year weekend. my bad to the Aggies on that. That's right. They did beat Ole Miss last weekend because Will Frizzell had just a monster series for them. And but Georgia, they got the win against Florida. They were able to get one against Arkansas. So avoiding the sweeps, are big. They got a series win against Missouri, a series win against Kentucky. They won a game against South Carolina. They won a game against Tennessee. So there's, weekends where they didn't win series, but they avoided sweeps. And I think the same can be said for Ole Miss. They were talking about that on the telecast yesterday. Yeah, they lost 4 or 5 series in a row, but they were able to win at least one game and not get swept. And yesterday, when they beat Vanderbilt, that's the first series win Ole Miss has had this season in the SEC that wasn't a sweep. Their 3 series wins were sweeps, and the others, they were 1 and 2 in their losses. So now they have 4 series wins, 5 series losses, and in the series wins, they're 11 and 1. And in the losses, they still won 5 games. It wasn't like they were swept twice and they're 3 and 12 and trying to dig out of a hole. So I think Ole Miss has an advantage. This weekend. Nikhazy's been really good for them. They are 8-1 in his starts in the league. He moved to number 1 this past week against Vanderbilt, pitched really well against Rocker, and they can swing it. They can hit balls out of the park, and they showed that yesterday, and they're explosive, and they can score a bunch of runs in innings. They've done that multiple times this year. I think they're going to probably be too much for Georgia this weekend. Of course, we get into all that later in the week as we look at these series. But with also now a series win over Vanderbilt, they can get a series win over Georgia. They're kind of like South Carolina. They're in that, well, we're in the 20, we want to get to the 16, and that could certainly help them, do that in getting in that 16. I mean, they win the series, they've got 18 wins. They sweep the series, they got 19 wins, and I think that's kind of hard to tell a team in this league it's got 18 or 19 wins that you can't host. And I think that'd put a lot of pressure on the committee, to get in there and go, well, hey, they're 19 and 11, and the series they have a series win over Vanderbilt, but their series losses came to Arkansas, Florida, and Mississippi State. And I think those were all in back-to-back weeks. Pretty juggernaut schedule for them. The SEC didn't do them any favors either with rolling those 3 guys out in a row and trying to take care of them. And they do have a series win over South Carolina. They got a series win over Alabama. They did lose a series at home to LSU. They did lose a series on the road to A&M, but I think winning their last 2 series and 3 of their last 4 would help them and would resonate in the committee's ears, especially if they can finish 19 and 11.
All right, Barry, I'm going to give you a trivia question. I'm going to put you on the spot, see how good your baseball knowledge is. I know it's good, but I want to see just how good it is. Who is leading the SEC in home runs as a team in league games? Because this surprised me.
Well, I mean, I could cheat and go look that up, but I'm not going to look it up. And since it surprises you, I'm going to say Ole Miss.
It's Auburn.
Really?
Ole Miss has only got 35 home runs in league play, which is behind Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Arkansas's only got 36, by the way. Auburn leads the SEC with 46 home runs.
Wow.
Now, it's not helping the Tigers that much because they're 8-19, but it did help them beat A&M this weekend.
Well, and actually, the game that they hit 6, they lost. They hit 6 home runs on Saturday and got beat. But, yes, they did hit a fair number of home runs against the Aggies this weekend. but they had 6 home runs in 4 and a third innings against the Aggies on Saturday, and had a 9, but only led 9-7. And then Joseph Menifee came in and just shut them down and gave the Aggies a chance to win the game 11-9, and they did. They were only 1 home run off the school record Saturday for a single game with 7. But the 6 home runs Saturday certainly didn't help them any. But they did swing it this weekend, and they did hit a bunch of home runs. And I am surprised to look at that they have 46 and Vanderbilt's 42 and Tennessee's 41. In looking at that, and you look at Missouri, they have 18, which is last. So Auburn going to Missouri this weekend, best home run team in the league, worst home run team in the league. Just kind of see how that will play out. But you look at Auburn, they've allowed 33 home runs, and Missouri's only allowed 27. So that's not a lot in the league. In fact, the 27 that Missouri has allowed in SEC play is the second fewest behind South Carolina and Florida. So Missouri doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but their pitchers don't give up a ton either in the league. So we'll see how that plays out this weekend in Columbia. But yeah, very surprising to see that, and surprised Saturday to see them hit 6 home runs in a game and didn't win.
And then the one they win in game 3, they didn't hit any home runs.
Which makes no sense. You look at it, you're like, well,
but that was the weekend in SEC baseball, right?
And that's the way it is. I haven't kept up with it because I know the record is probably not very good. That's probably why I haven't kept up with it. And going through, and you talk about, we talk about these series, and I write down, who I picked to win the series and stuff. I don't know that I'm 500 this year. I really don't, because you just can't. I don't think anything's predictable in this league, and nope, I don't think anybody in the world had Missouri winning a series at Starkville. And not only did they win the series, but they were, as we mentioned, one bad 7th inning Thursday night from sweeping. And I don't know that anybody. Now, I did have Arkansas winning against Tennessee this weekend. I said that Friday morning in our podcast. And there's just something about that Arkansas team that it's just not human. I mean, and I don't mean that ugly. They just find ways to win games that nobody else, can find to win. I mean, it's just, every game, they're 16-5 away from Baum Stadium.
Well, they have won every weekend SEC series. They've won every weekend series, period.
They have.
But they have won every one. Everybody else in the league has lost at least 2 now. And now here's consistency, right? They have won all of them 2-1, except for the state series, Mississippi State, which they swept back in week 2.
And the only other team in the 30-game SEC era to win all 10 series was the 2013 Vanderbilt Commodores. And that was a team that went 26-3. And
they did not get to Omaha.
And didn't go to Omaha. That'll never happen again. They will never be a team go 26-3 or 4 ever again. Yeah, they didn't go to Omaha because they lost to Louisville in the Super Regional at home. But you're talking Arkansas, 16-5 away from Baum Stadium, 28-10 against Quad 1 and Quad 2 teams, and just all these wins: Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, 2 against Louisiana Tech, 3 against Mississippi State, 2 against Ole Miss, 2 against South Carolina, 2 against Tennessee. All those are on the road. They're not winning. They're not winning all these hard games at home. They're winning all these games on the road. I mean, they won 2 out of 3 from Alabama at home. They won 2 out of 3 from Auburn at home. Lost the opener in both games. Still not exactly sure how that happened. They lost the finale to A&M at home. Won 2 out of 3 from A&M, and they won 2 out of 3 from Georgia, losing the middle game at home to Georgia. So they've lost either the opener, the middle game, or the last game at home to 4 teams they really and truly probably should have swept. And then you're talking about they're even better than where they are. I mean, they've even, just say they won 2 of those games, the race is already over. But they didn't. And they were able to sweep Mississippi State, which is really hard to do. And then, win a series at Ole Miss and win a series at Tennessee, and it just to go on the road and do what they've done really shows how good they are. And it's still not over. I mean, they got Florida at home left to go, and Florida's a team we hadn't talked about this morning, and they're a team that a lot of people hadn't talked about. But this Florida team has very quietly crawled back into the world of baseball, and you're looking like, wow, this team has really played better. 12-4 in their last 16 SEC games. Won 4 straight series and 6 of 7. Won 5 consecutive SEC series.
Yeah, and only lost 2 overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and this was a team that after the second or third week we're like, Florida's not very good, and they've just hung with it, and here they are. They're 17-10. Very difficult task ahead of them to go to Baum and try to win a series to win the division, particularly for a team that when you talk about they hadn't won a lot of series, that's where they've had their problems is on the road. They did win a series at Auburn, but they hadn't won another road series all year long, and I don't think they're going to win one at Arkansas this weekend, which, by the way, will be 100% capacity in time for the Gators to roll into town. And as we failed to mention a minute ago, when we're talking about all these series wins with Arkansas, that when they went on these road trips and played these teams, oh, by the way, that was the first time those ballparks were 100% capacity all year long. So they went to Oxford. Oh, we've opened up. They went to Mississippi State. Oh, by the way, we've opened up. We're 100% now. And they went to LSU. Oh, by the way, we're 100% capacity now. And then they went to Tennessee this weekend. Yeah, we're sold all of our seats. So there are 4 SEC road series. Those 4 SEC road series, all those places were 100% capacity as well. So it just happened to be that it opened the time that Arkansas rolled into town. I don't think that was a coincidence, and I think that's strategic planning by those teams. But it didn't faze Arkansas one bit.
Yeah, 2 things as we close today. Arkansas not only has won every SEC series, it opens the season with 3 wins in Arlington over Texas Tech, Texas, TCU. The next weekend, it takes 4 against Southeast Missouri State, which is second in the OVC behind Murray State, which the Hogs swept the next weekend. Then it takes 2 or 3 at Louisiana Tech, again, team that probably is hosting. I don't know how Tech did this weekend. Let me check on that. Let's see. Tech swept 3 games at home against Texas San Antonio, so I wouldn't think that would change anything. And then the SEC schedules we mentioned. So just the model of consistency is Arkansas. As for Florida, one more thing here before we get too excited about the Gators, which was preseason number 1 by everybody, that team. Last 5 series have been against Missouri, at Auburn, Vandy at home, at Kentucky, Georgia. So really only one good team in there that Florida's beaten. Still, again, it's the SEC. Nobody is a pushover. So there's that. But it'll be interesting to see how the Gators respond this weekend. Well, I say this weekend. It'll be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Fayetteville. In any case, I want to leave a few things to talk about tomorrow. Believe it or not, there is more to talk about that we didn't get to. But with that, we'll end today's podcast. Special thanks to Barry Allen. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the 14 Podcast. Be sure and follow us at 14 Southeastern on Twitter. Be sure and read all our content at southeastern14.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast where you get it. The 5-star ratings and nice comments help us get found. And so in any case, do us a favor if you're listening and like what you hear. For Barry Allen, I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for listening to the 14 Podcast. We will see you again on Tuesday.